November 3, 2010. 4:46 in the morning. The border between San Diego and Tijuana is silent, the kind of silence that makes every small sound feel louder than it should. Inside a dim surveillance room, Border Intelligence Agent Aaron Vega leans over a glowing thermal monitor, expecting another night of empty screens and routine sweeps. Then something shifts. A faint heat signature flickers beneath the ground. At first he thinks it is noise, a glitch, a piece of bad data. But the shape expands, brightens, and begins to move with a slow, deliberate pulse, as if something alive is crawling 40 feet below the surface. Vega stops breathing for a moment. Nothing should be moving down there. He zooms in on grid D7, narrowing the image until the warehouse above appears sharp and still. Yet the ground below reveals a long thin structure glowing like a buried vein. It is too straight to be natural, too coldly precise to be accidental. It looks engineered, intentional, as if someone carved a secret artery beneath the border and assumed no one would ever see it. Vega feels a chill slide down his spine. He has worked this border for more than a decade. He knows tunnels. He knows the signs. But he has never seen one light up like this. He calls out to the tech officer to enhance the lower quadrant. The screen tightens again, revealing the unmistakable outline of a tunnel running deep under Otay Mesa. And deeper still, the heat signature moves, disappearing into the dark, then returning like a shadow pacing its cage. Vega whispers to himself, almost afraid of the answer forming in his mind. Someone is down there. Someone is moving. He turns to the tech officer. Call the supervisor. Now. What Vega doesn't realize is that across the border, in a cramped apartment in Tijuana, a man sits with a headset pressed to his ear, listening to every word. And when he hears Vega say the word tunnel, he leans back and smiles, because this discovery is about to start a countdown neither side is prepared for. To understand what Agent Vega has stumbled onto, you need to understand the kind of tunnel that exists beneath Otay Mesa. This is not a hole dug by desperate men with shovels. This is not a crude passage scraped through dirt in the dead of night. This is engineering. Serious engineering. The real Otay Mesa tunnel, uncovered in 2010, stunned federal agents, because of how impossibly sophisticated it was. It stretched more than 2,100 feet under the border, deep enough to avoid detection, straight enough to feel unnatural, and reinforced like a structure meant to last for decades. The walls were lined with steel ribs and concrete slabs. The floor was poured smooth enough that carts could glide across it without a sound. Rail tracks ran the full length of the tunnel, built with the precision of a small mining operation. Overhead, a network of ventilation ducts kept the air cool, while industrial fans hummed like lungs in the dark. Even the lighting was designed with intention. Rows of LED strips cast a pale, sterile glow across the concrete, just bright enough for workers to move quickly, just dim enough to avoid heat signatures from above. Federal engineers later calculated that building something like this would take at least 8 months and cost well over $2 million. That number only tells part of the story. Because tunnels like this are not carved by amateurs. They require people who know how to read soil layers, people who understand structural weight, people who can wire electricity beneath the earth without leaving a trace on the surface. Mining engineers, electricians, construction specialists, men who can disappear into the underground world and return without ever speaking of what they built. And every one of them worked under the same silent rule. No mistakes, no noise, no evidence. That is why the tunnel terrified investigators. Not just because it existed, but because of what it represented. Someone with money, power, and meticulous planning had built a hidden artery beneath the border. A tunnel so refined it looked less like a crime scene and more like a secret government project. And if a tunnel like that exists, the question becomes unavoidable. What exactly was moving through it, and how long had it been happening without anyone noticing? Deep inside that tunnel, past the reinforced walls and the quiet hum of the ventilation fans, lay the real reason it existed. Money, not a few bills tucked away in crates, but mountains of cash stacked in heavy duffel bags, packed so tightly that the zippers strained against the weight. Federal estimates later suggested that in just 6 months the tunnel had moved enough product to generate nearly $24 million in raw, unfiltered cartel profit. That money did not sit in a bank. It sat underground, waiting to be moved across the border in the dead of night, waiting to be counted, laundered, and redistributed. And there was one man who saw it more than anyone else. Ignacio Morales, known to his co-workers simply as EG, a maintenance engineer hired to keep the ventilation units running and the rail tracks from seizing. He was not a drug trafficker. He was not a killer. He was a man whose life had simply collapsed around him. A sick mother. A mountain of debt. A job market that had forgotten he existed. When the cartel offered him more money than he had ever earned in his life, he took it. And when they brought him underground for the first time, when he saw those duffel bags stacked shoulder high, he felt the kind of dread that coils around a man and never lets go. Months passed. Every time he walked the tunnel, he told himself not to look at the bags, not to imagine what that money could do, not to imagine a way out. But anyone who spends long enough in the dark learns that temptation grows in silence. Then came the morning that changed everything. At 6:12 a distorted voice called his phone. No name, no introduction. Just a message delivered in a calm, mechanical tone. The authorities know about the tunnel. They will hit both ends tomorrow at 10 at night. Prepare yourself. And then the line went dead. Iggy stood frozen in his kitchen, half dressed for work, coffee turning cold in his hand. He understood immediately what the message meant. If he warned the cartel, they would seal the tunnel and go into hiding, and he would keep his job and maybe his life. If he stayed silent, the raid would expose him, and he would lose everything. But a third option emerged, one so reckless it made his heart pound in his chest. If the authorities were coming, and if the cartel did not know, then there was a small window, a tiny sliver of time in which the tunnel would be unguarded, a window long enough for someone to do the unthinkable. Iggy called two men he trusted in the only way criminals ever trust each other, with fear and necessity binding them together. Rafa, the mechanical engineer, and Tomas, the electrician. He told them only what mattered. The raid is coming. We have one chance. Tonight we take everything, 3 men, 12 bags, $24 million, and a countdown already in motion. While IG and the other engineers whispered over burner phones, the federal side was moving just as fast. At the San Diego field office, Agent Aaron Vega stepped into a crowded briefing room, the kind reserved for operations that could end careers or make them. Representatives from the DEA, FBI, Homeland Security, and Border Patrol filled the seats, their faces lit by the glow of a projector. Vega opened the file on the table and spoke with the calm weight of a man who understood exactly what they were up against. We have located what appears to be a fully operational cross-border tunnel under Otay Mesa. Construction quality indicates months of labor and significant funding. We have reason to believe it is active. The room shifted with tension. Someone asked the question everyone was thinking. What about cash? Is there money down there? Vega nodded once. Intelligence suggests there may be large sums stored periodically. Could be hundreds of thousands. Could be millions. That changed everything. A drug bust is routine. A financial takedown hits harder. Cutting off cash is like cutting off oxygen. Vega pointed to the clock on the wall. The plan is simple. We hit both ends of the tunnel at exactly 10 p.m. tomorrow. No earlier, no later. Mexican authorities will coordinate on their side. Our teams will breach simultaneously. Total lockdown. No escape routes. No warning. No leaks. That last line should have echoed like a bad omen, but no one in that room knew that the leak had already happened, and that the people acting on it were not cartel bosses or armed traffickers. They were 3 men with nothing to lose. At that same hour, Iggy met Rafa and Tomas behind an abandoned loading dock. Their conversation was clipped and quiet, each sentence weighed down with risk. AJ laid out the plan like a man walking along the edge of a cliff. I enter the tunnel from the Tijuana side at 8. Rafa, you enter from the American side at 8:10. We meet in the middle, Sector 6. We load the bags onto the rail carts. We move them to the Otay Mesa exit. Tomas waits at the surface with the truck. No lights, no noise, no second chances. Rafa calculated the weight in his mind. 12 bags, about 480 pounds. 6 runs. 90 minutes if nothing goes wrong. Everything will go wrong, Tomas muttered, but he still nodded. They all did. Fear pulls some people apart, but for others it tightens like a knot. By the time they split up, the decision had already hardened inside them. Vega was preparing a federal raid designed to crush a cartel. Iggy was preparing a theft designed to outrun both the cartel and the federal government in the same night. And the countdown between the two operations had just begun. 8:02 p.m. the steel door on the Tijuana side slid open and Iggy stepped into the tunnel with a flashlight and a pounding heartbeat. The air was cold, humming with the steady breath of the ventilation fans, and the long concrete corridor stretched ahead like a metallic throat disappearing into darkness. 8:14. Rafa entered from the Otay Mesa side, his steps quick and sharp, the kind of walk a man uses when fear pushes him forward. Their radios clicked once, a silent confirmation. No turning back. The first run moved like clockwork. 2 heavy bags lifted onto the cart, 300 meters of pushing, a quick drop, then the long jog back through the dim LED glow. 8:27. First run done, 8:41. Second run completed, 8:55. Third run finished. They were ahead of schedule, though neither felt safe. The tunnel seemed to tighten around them, every sound amplified, every shadow alive. Then the radio cracked open with a voice that froze the air. "Iggy, you in the tunnel," a cartel guard.
Iggy felt his stomach drop.
"Yeah," he answered, trying to keep his voice steady. "Checking the ventilation. Everything is good." 15 more minutes. A long pause followed before the guard finally replied. "Copy." When the radio clicked silent, both men felt the danger closing in. If anyone came down those stairs, the night would end in blood. They moved faster, pushing the cart so hard the wheels screeched against the tracks. 9:08. Fourth run. 9:21. Fifth run. Their breathing grew ragged, their legs burning, but adrenaline drowned out everything except the ticking in their heads. By the sixth run their hands trembled from exhaustion and fear, yet they kept moving. 9:33 p.m. All 12 bags, nearly $24 million, were finally stacked by the hydraulic lift. Above ground, Tomas waited with the truck running, eyes scanning every dark corner of the warehouse. They had 90 seconds to move everything. The first duffel bag slammed into the truck bed. Then another. Then another. The sound was thick, heavy, the sound of money being hurled at a future none of them were sure they would live long enough to spend. Rafa shoved the last bag inside. Tomas dropped the truck into gear. 9:34 p.m. The truck eased out of the warehouse without headlights, rolling into the night like a shadow, trying not to be noticed. Behind them the tunnel fell silent again, the kind of silence that hides secrets for decades. They had taken millions from a cartel, slipped beneath the feet of the authorities, and done it all inside a narrow 90-minute window. In less than an hour the DEA would storm the tunnel with battering rams and flashlights. But by then the men who pulled off one of the most improbable heists in border history would already be gone. 10 p.m. The exact minute the federal task force had circled in red. At the Otay Mesa warehouse, the DA's tactical team burst through the doors with a blast of boots and shouts, the noise tearing through the silence like a warning shot. Flashlights cut across empty concrete floors. Agents rushed toward the tunnel entrance, expecting armed guards, frantic smugglers, maybe even a gunfight. Instead they found nothing. The tunnel mouth yawned open, quiet and untouched, as if the world below had been abandoned hours earlier. Vega descended first, his footsteps echoing along the steel-reinforced shaft. The deeper he went, the more the uneasy stillness settled around him. No workers, no equipment, no traffic, only the steady hum of the ventilation fans and the long trail of dust that seemed disturbed but gave away nothing. He walked nearly 700 meters, his light sliding over rail tracks that still held the faint imprint of wheels. Tool marks on the wall. Fresh scuffs on the floor. Signs of movement, but no sign of the people who made them. At the far end of the tunnel he stopped, staring at a patch of concrete where the duffel bags had once rested. 12 spots where millions in cash had sat for months, now nothing more than cold air and shadows. "Someone beat us here," Vega whispered, not to his team, not even to the room, but to himself. On the Tijuana side, Mexican authorities reported the same thing. An operational tunnel, fully intact, but stripped clean. No drugs, no weapons, no cash, no bodies, as if the entire underground world had vanished between sunset and the raid. Hours later news of the bust reached the cartel. Rage followed almost instantly. $24 million gone without a trace. Their first question was simple. Who knew about the raid? The answers pointed in 3 directions. A handful of officials, a handful of American agents, and the engineers who maintained the tunnel. That was enough to start a hunt that would consume weeks. They searched neighborhoods, questioned relatives, pushed informants, but found nothing. Because by then Iggy was gone. Rafa was gone. Tomas was gone. No credit card activity, no phone records, no surveillance hits. Apartments emptied, vehicles abandoned. Digital footprints wiped clean. 3 men erased from their own lives with the same precision used to build the tunnel they once worked in. To this day investigators argue about what happened next. Some believe the cartel tracked them down, ended it quietly, and buried the truth somewhere in the desert. Others believe the men escaped south, slipping into countries where money speaks louder than borders. And a few, including Vega, thinks the simplest answer might also be the most unsettling. They survived. They disappeared under new names, carrying just enough cash to never be found and never be forced to speak. Because on that night, Inside a hidden tunnel beneath the border, 3 ordinary men did something extraordinary. They stole time. They stole freedom. And for at least a few hours, they won. If you enjoyed this story and want more untold cases like this, make sure you subscribe so you never miss the next one. And if you are still here, you are exactly the kind of viewer this channel was made for. Hit that subscribe button and stay with us for the next deep dive.